betrayal. That is the word for this election. That is the word for 2025 elections. It's the word for the 26 elections. They have betrayed you. They did sell a bill of goods that they were going to take care of you. I mean, we didn't vote for Trump, but there's a lot of people that did believe what he said. Well, he lied.
That was Charlie Bailey, chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia. A new year means new elections, and as we enter this final stretch of 2025, it's important for us to heed the lessons of this year's elections as we look toward next year's midterms. Whether it's holding Trump accountable for his policies that are jacking up the cost of living, paving a path forward for a more affordable America, there's a lot we can learn about the stories that shaped this year's politics. Charlie and I broke down the most recent election results in Georgia, what he thinks they may foretell for next year's midterms. We also discussed the special election in Tennessee's 7th congressional district this week and how candidates should navigate the new media landscape. And stick around after the interview for a moment of joy because, folks, college football playoff season is rapidly approaching. Charlie Bailey is the chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia. He also previously ran for Georgia Attorney General and Georgia Lieutenant Governor. Charlie Bailey, welcome to the pod.
Colin, great to be here.
So we've got a lot to break down about elections that have taken place over the course of the last month, some that will take place next year. But I want to start by asking you about another election, and that is your election to be
the
chair.
one that everybody's really talking about.
Yes, of course. Your election to be chair of the Georgia Democratic Party, which took place earlier this year. Georgia Democrats have made a lot of strides over the course of the last 5 years. I am curious to learn a little bit more about your vision for where you are taking the party, where you want to take the party, as we look toward, obviously a really consequential presidential election in 2028, but really important contest across the state in 2025 and 2026.
Well, I mean, my feeling on all this is fairly straightforward, and particularly in our state where Republicans have been in charge for 22 years. The American dream is less attainable now for the vast majority of Georgians than it was 22 years ago when they took power. And my job as chair is to make sure that the good people of Georgia know exactly who to blame for that. And that the Democratic Party, if we are anything at all, we are the party that stands up for working people. The way I kind of view it, and this is when I campaigned for chair, I talked about how I had experience raising money, and I'd run 2 statewide major races and been an operative or what. Back then we just called ourselves staffers, and now they're operatives and all that,
the political dark arts.
Yeah. Back before law school and everything, but its essence is the idea that the vast majority of Georgians wake up every day and they're worried about, is my kid safe? How are they doing in school? If I get a hospital bill, can I pay it? Can I save up a little bit of money to maybe go on vacation this year, put a little bit away? And most importantly, can I look my kids, my grandkids, my nieces and nephews in the eye and with a straight face and with hope say that you're going to have a better life than the one that I had? And as long as I'm chair, we're going to be beating the hell out of Republicans for the actions they have taken that have made that more difficult for the people of Georgia. And we do that in campaigns.
Well, we'll talk about Georgia in just a second, but I did want to start by talking about some of the news of this week. We saw Republicans ended up defending a seat in a special election for Tennessee's 7th congressional district this week. Congressman-elect Matt Van Epps ended up eking out a 9-point victory in a district that Donald Trump won by 22 points.
Right.
I am curious whether you get the sense that this sort of kind of overperformance by Democrats in this Democrat in this election, coupled with the results that we've seen in other special elections this year suggest to you that we may be starting to see kind of the building of what may be a larger blue wave as we head into the midterms? What do you think we can learn from that Tennessee race? And, what's your view as we head into next year?
Well, I don't pretend to be an expert on Tennessee. Our brothers and sisters up there, though, did a great job. And as you've said, a 13-point overperformance is it should have Republicans, and I'm quite certain it does have Republicans very worried. And it is in line with what we've seen in our state. We had a state Senate special election where our candidate overperformed on the last nominee by 17 points, overperformed on Trump by 11 or 12. And then we've got a state house race going on right now, actually, a week from yesterday, which is a Trump plus 12 district. And we're investing in that one to flip it. What we saw with the PSC races in Georgia. I mean, what you're seeing across the country, and everybody is seeing the same similar things. And it takes work, and it takes good candidates and all the rest. But it is a sense that the people of this country, and I know the people of Georgia, feel betrayal. Betrayal by Republicans and betrayal by Donald Trump. Said he was going to bring down the car note, bring down the house note. Bring down prices, protect Social Security and Medicare, all the things he said. And he, like other Republicans, like Burt Jones, who's running for governor in our state, nobody really matters much. Nobody really cares much what you say in some speech. Any candidate can do that, and Donald Trump certainly did. What matters is, with the great power you've been given, what are you doing about it? And what Trump has done is what Republicans, frankly, always have done. He's rewarded himself, his family. How many meme coins now are there for the Trump family?
Yeah.
AI billionaires, paid them off and done it on the backs of working people. And it turns out folks aren't a fan of billionaires getting $1 million a year in tax cuts for the next 10 years, particularly when you're going to cut billions of dollars out of Medicaid. In my state, projected to have $540 million cut out of our rural health care. And then we could get into the subsidy increases that our folks, when we got 1.3 estimated Georgians, they're going to see their health care rates double at least. Turns out people don't like that.
Yeah. People thought healthcare was already expensive. Yeah. Now you're talking about jacking it up even higher.
Right.
Yeah.
And to do what? And while he's not doing those things that he said he was going to work on for working people, building a ballroom, giving Argentina, what is it now, $40 billion. $40 billion while our ranchers have a tough time. I mean, who the hell wants to vote for this? And it turns out people are trending away from it. And I think we're going to, with hard work and investment and smart strategy, we'll continue to take advantage of that.
Well, we know that this Tennessee race, Republicans outspent Democrats in this race 3-1. I imagine they are not going to be able to enjoy such an advantage across the broad landscape as we head into next year. I know that there were 103 Republicans in Congress who are in more Democratic-leaning districts than Tennessee's 7th congressional district. So, if you ask me, it's looking like Democrats are headed into next year, on really solid footing. But I did want to talk about Georgia. You brought up PSC election last month. I'm talking about the Public Service Commission, which is the entity in the state that regulates utilities. There were elections in November. This is a commission that Republicans, I know, have long held a majority for. Mm-hmm. Democrats won statewide races in Georgia. For our listeners, You probably already know this, but Georgia is an extremely competitive statewide, and yet Republicans have long held, like you said, power over the major state offices. While they've enjoyed better fortunes in the federal offices, state offices, Republicans have really dominated. Why was it that two Democrats were able to win election to the Public Service Commission in November? What was it that made their fortunes different from Democrats over the course of the past few decades?
Well, in this race, what we saw is an example of what we were talking about and what we did, this Republican betrayal. These members of the Public Service Commission, and there are 5 in total, 2 were on the ballot this year. They voted over and over and over again. These are the people that decide what the rate your power company can charge you is. So the power company can't just jack your bill up. They got to get approval on a rate increase from the PSC. It was built to be, the Public Service Commission is supposed to serve the public and be a check on a company that got the rights to have a monopoly in the state. Mm-hmm. And what they ended up doing is taking care of the bottom line of the power companies, not the bottom lines of the people of Georgia. And what we did is make sure they knew it. We ran TV and digital ads, $250,000 buys, the most the state party has invested directly in a race in 19 years, which is also the last time that we won a non-federal statewide race. And it was a simple message. These folks were given power. With that power, they took these actions that resulted in, on average, your bills over the last 3 years going up $500 a year.
Wow.
And guess what? You ain't got to put up with that.
Yeah.
You can vote them out. It was boom, boom, boom. And we put that message out there, like I said, TV and digital ads. We went toe-to-toe with the vaunted Brian Kemp political machine. His PAC spent $550,000. But our message was much better, because when you sit there and you see the president doing this as well, you see Trump doing this, the affordability is a hoax and all this kind of thing. You can't message around reality. And if you try too hard to, it can boomerang on you real fast. And so with their TV ads, they go up and say, well, Georgia's great and everything's great, and you got these people to thank for it, essentially. Mm-hmm. Well, people love their state, but everything ain't great. They're dealing with higher prices across the board, power bills being a big part of it, and they're seeing the folks that are getting rewarded by that are these like AI billionaires building these data centers. And they say, wait a minute, why are we going to subsidize these AI billionaires by paying higher rates? And we saw that. Here's a little tidbit for you. Not to get too in the weeds here, but you're well aware of like DNC scores. Mm-hmm. You know how you look at electorate, and based on a bunch of factors, including the primaries they vote in, everybody gets a score 1 to 100. As long as we've had these in Georgia since 2008 or whenever it was, that ultimate score for an electorate, when you average out everybody in the electorate where that score sat, was always within a point or two of the ultimate vote share. What I mean, here's an example. Last year, the vote share, the Democratic score for the electorate was 48. And the VP got 48.5. So it's always been within a point or two. Mm-hmm. So you would expect in a race where we won 63% of the vote, we won by 26 points.
Wow.
And we tripled the turnout in a normal off year. Normal off year is about 500,000, maybe 600,000. 1.56 million people came out and voted. When you look at it, you would expect, okay, you won by 63, then you would see a DNC score of 63, 64, 62. It was 56.7. It was the biggest delta we've ever seen since we've had these scores. And what it says is the electorate was less Democratic than the vote share. What that means is independents and Republicans were voting for Democrats at a higher share. They vote in 20 years.
Fascinating. Yeah, I know, we look to some of the other elections. Mikey Sherrill, the governor-elect of New Jersey, Abigail Spanberger, the governor-elect of Virginia. The exit polls suggest that they each won about 7% of 2024 Trump voters. Mm-hmm. It sounds like that easily was replicated in Georgia,
probably a little bit more.
if not more. I know in the case of Mikey Sherrill, exit poll suggests she won nearly about 1 in 5 Latino Trump voters in 2024. So it does really seem that not only are Democrats energized, are they turning out, registering a real objection to this administration, its policies that are making it, just harder to afford the basics. But Democrats are also succeeding in persuading voters as well. It sounds like affordability is a real central part of that case. I am curious to understand a bit more. What was the case that Republicans in those elections were taking to voters? You mentioned Trump recently has been, saying that like affordability is just a Democratic con job, or like saying like, all the prices are down, everything is great, and that really falling on deaf ears. I'm curious how Republicans in those contests navigated sort of the difficult terrain that they were running their elections, given so much economic anxiety that we're seeing in the country.
You saw kind of two tracks. On TV, what they said is it was Brian Kemp to camera, which normally when Brian Kemp spends money out of his leadership committee, he goes to camera. To say, hey, these guys are great guys, Tim and Fitz here, and they've worked hard to make sure that Georgia is the best place in the country to do business. They voted for a rate freeze earlier this year, which they did. And we need to keep the progress going in Georgia, elect these two. That's the ad. And there was another tact with some digital that was saying if you elect these Democrats, you're going to get California policies.
I think I've seen something like this happen before. Yeah.
Right. And they're going to raise your rates and all this kind of thing. Maybe that's as best they could do.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes I was a prosecutor, trial lawyer by trade. Like, bad facts are bad facts. And sometimes it's just really hard, if they're bad, to message around them. But you run the potential, and that's what I was talking about, of like really pissing people off.
Yeah.
Because you said, you think I'm stupid? You did a rate freeze this year after raising rates,
jacking up our rates
for 6
for so
straight
long.
years.
Yeah,
so, how stupid do you think I am? And then that can piss people off.
Sure.
But that's what they tried.
So, part of why affordability does seem to be ringing so true is so much of what the administration has done has really made the problem all that much worse, right? Like 2024 was like absolutely an affordability election. It was really like tip of the spear. That's what, voters who ended up moving were persuaded between the candidates seemed to suggest, that was a real determinative factor. But you mentioned healthcare earlier. You mentioned, utilities, of course. But we've also seen the president's policies on tariffs are causing things to, go up left and right, whether it is for, just the basics like school supplies, clothes. But we're also seeing, major employers say, we can't juggle this additional burden. How are you seeing the impact of tariffs affect the political picture on the ground in the state? Democrats in Georgia have long been dominant kind of in the Atlanta metro areas. I'm curious whether you talked about ranchers earlier. Are some of these policy changes to tariffs or the rural healthcare cuts, what have you, are they having an outsized impact on persuading people in some of the areas that Republicans have enjoyed a greater advantage of in the past?
Yes, and we've got a big agriculture is still the biggest industry. I mean, everybody thinks about Georgia and they think about Atlanta, which is a booming kind of metropolis at this point.
Yeah.
But still, our biggest industry is agriculture, and our farmers and ranchers are really being hit hard. They've still not gotten money because Trump can't figure out, the federal government can't figure out how to get the money down to our farmers from Hurricane Helene last year. Hurricane Helene, tore through southwest and southeast up into East Georgia, and so they're hurting from that. On top of that, you've got these tariffs. So there's a lot of people that are being micro affected that way. And some people, this is anecdotal. I grew up on a cattle farm.
Yeah.
And so this is anecdotal evidence. I don't have a poll of farmers and ranchers, but anecdotal evidence, some people that, have not talked about voting for Democrats, and they're not talking about voting for Democrats yet, but they're talking about being fed up, and why didn't he do something about what we are dealing with? Why that he's making us suffer. We trusted him. You hear that bubbling up.
Well, how can Democrats capitalize on that then, right?
Yeah.
If we are seeing more folks say they either regret or they are disapproving of the job performance, right? Like, what do Democrats need to do to capitalize on that?
The word of the day, and this is not original. James Carville said this first. At least, I heard him say it months ago or whatever. Betrayal. That is the word for this election. That is the word for the 2025 elections. It's the word for the 26 elections. They have betrayed you. You don't try to prove to somebody that they got something wrong in the past. I try to do that with my wife. That ain't a good idea. They betrayed you. They did sell a bill of goods that they were going to take care of you. I mean, we didn't vote for Trump, but there's a lot of people that did believe what he said. Well, he lied. And I often talk, I grew up in the church. Words without deeds, well, they're dead. So what if his deeds tell you? And I think we have to, and as long as I'm chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia, we will run with that theme. It has the benefit of being true, and people understand it. Instinctively, they understand that.
Well, you may have a new surrogate that you might never have predicted just a few short weeks ago. But one of the people who's been out there making that case actually is at least for the next few weeks, a Republican congresswoman from Georgia named Marjorie Taylor Greene. You may have heard of her.
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah, she has been out there banging the drum. Trump and Republicans, they have no plan to prevent people's healthcare costs from doubling, as you said. Everything is more expensive. I'm curious. This has led to a seemingly a real falling out between the president and Congresswoman Greene. How are her constituents? How are people in Georgia responding to the criticism that she's been laying out, and I think a fairly, compelling way, just kind of calling balls and strikes over the course of the last few months. How are they responding to her?
Well, you're seeing this infighting going on in the party to the degree, and this all swirls around this, the affordability, pocketbook, the trouble people are in. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is reflective of a part of, the Republican base that does feel that way. I think that's why you see people open to the message that we had in PSE, open to the message in Virginia and New Jersey, though not Marjorie Taylor Greene's state. She's reflecting. I think that's the most important thing, is that this will cause continued infighting in both our Senate race and our governor's race. We've had two governor's candidates come out and say, Chris Carr and Brad Raffensperger, after the PSC race, anybody that tells you that this is not about affordability, is not paying attention. I mean, they said that. So this is going to continue to be a thing in those primaries. So politically, that's significant, but it's more significant because she is reflecting something real in the Republican base, and it's a major danger for for Republicans running for office. I hate to, be a broken record on it, but like life is like the reality of people's lives is the most important thing in politics. And you got to be able to have a message that understands what they're going through and gives them some understanding of why they're going through it, and then, an option. So, we ain't got to agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on everything she believes, and I certainly don't, but she's right on these things. She's just telling the truth.
Yeah.
And as long as she keeps doing it, I mean, whether she does it or not, I think it exists in the base. But as long as she keeps doing it, it's going to be a problem not only for Donald Trump, but for people running for Senate in Georgia like Mike Collins and the worst football coach in the history of Tennessee, Derek Dooley, and Buddy Carter and the rest.
I'm curious, as somebody who knows Georgia better than anybody, I'm fascinated to know. It's pretty clear Marjorie Taylor Greene has aspirations for higher office, whether it's president or a statewide office in Georgia. Do you think this kind of new inclination for truth-telling, for leveling with the public about the reality they're feeling, do you think that there's a second act for Marjorie Taylor Greene? Do you think that she is able to etch-a-sketch away all of, the absolute diehard MAGA loyalty, just extreme and inoffensive positions she's held, offensive things she's espoused? Do you think that the people of Georgia would entertain a second look at her?
I think, in order to win a general election, she's got to have some real come to Jesus moments. And look, I'm glad she's telling the truth about this. I've heard that she's made at least some comments saying, she was wrong to be so, so extreme. I don't know exactly her language. Kind of a nod a bit, but it's going to take way more than that to get redemption for some of the hate that she spewed. Is it possible? Anything's possible, but she's got a ways to go on those things. One thing she needs to be asked as she's doing these interviews and everything: do you still believe the election was stolen in 2020?
Yeah.
Do you still think it was appropriate to try to throw out the votes of millions of Georgians, of your fellow citizens? Do you think that was respectful of them? She needs to answer for that. Now, what would be great is if she said, actually, no, I've thought about it, and that was wrong to do that. And I'm, I believe in forgiveness, but she's got to take a lot of steps towards that. Now, the people that are most worried about this is that's folks I named before: Mike Collins and Derek Dooley and Buddy Carter, who thought they had her out of the Senate race, and Burt Jones, the lieutenant governor running for governor, and Chris Carr, the AG running for governor, Brad Raffensperger. Those individuals are very worried that she's going to have a change of mind, rethink, and get into one of those races.
Interesting. Well, speaking of races next year that are top of mind for Georgia political operatives like yourself, Senator Jon Ossoff, who was elected in 2020, I guess technically 2021. I remember it quite well. It was the day before January 6th.
Yep.
He is up for reelection next year, and it is probably one of the closest, if not, the tightest races that a Senate incumbent, at least on the Democratic side, is going to face next year. How are you feeling about the race? Do you think he's going to be able to eke out a victory? And if so, what's the path to doing so?
We feel good about the race. My friend John, our United States Senator, is going to get reelected next year. He's going to be reelected first and foremost because of his record and what he's done for the people of Georgia, but also because of who he is running against. This motley crew, this clown of cars, car of clowns rather, that are running against him. I mean, you've got people that like Mike Collins and Derek Dooley and Buddy Carter that cheered these healthcare cuts. Mike Collins said he wished they could have cut Medicaid and Medicare more. Buddy Carter, when asked, well, do you have a healthcare plan to get these subsidies back? He says no. Derek Dooley said he would have voted the same way. I mean, these are extreme positions that are very unpopular, and they've got infighting going on. Kemp's for Derek Dooley, and Trump has not weighed in yet, but you've got, Kemp's PAC put up an ad hitting Collins and Carter, and then some Washington Republicans got mad at Kemp for putting up the ad. So that's a mess over there.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a race to who can defend these really toxic, Trump policies. So it's a combination of those things. These candidates that are running to see who can support Donald Trump's toxic policies the most, in contrast with Jon's record. And obviously the coordinated campaign that we're going to build from the state party, I think we're very confident. Now, we got to run the race. We got to do all the things that we have to do to build an organizational structure. But I'm very confident he's going to be reelected.
I'm personally fascinated by this race, in part because we have seen Senator Ossoff has had success because he has been able to both persuade people and also turn out voters in the Democratic base. This is a really young white Jewish man from the Atlanta metro area, but has won huge support among Asian American voters, black voters in the state. What Latino voters? How is he thinking about reaching some of these communities, voters in rural Georgia, that I think are going to be really critical to assembling the coalition that helped propel him to victory in 2020?
Well, I think Jon he's really good at a lot of things, but in particular, I think people can learn some lessons with the way that he messages. And he gave a speech in Savannah back, might have been the day I got elected chair in May. And he talked about how the corruption of Trump and these Republicans are what makes life harder for working people. There's a direct connection between that. He didn't use the term betrayal, but it's basically the same kind of argument. And I think that really resonates. One, he's himself. Jon is you're getting the real him when he's talking. I think people are attracted to that. They know he tells the truth. And so, Jon doesn't have different messages as he goes around the state. He delivers the same message about the work that he's doing. His constituent services are phenomenal, and get a lot of rave reviews. That's something that people don't. It's not like the sexy thing that's talked about on cable news or whatever, but that kind of work is really, really, like, people know that he's there for them.
Makes a huge difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
And he just carries that message of, like, I work for you. This is what I'm focused on, getting good jobs to this state, making sure you've got good health care, fighting with everything I got against these Republicans that are making these things harder. And people believe him because he's himself. He's not trying to be something else. He is himself when he delivers it.
You talked about this, connecting with folks, in a kind of new media environment, right? We're very disaggregated, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like Not since we had, the advent of television going into people's living rooms have we seen as much change as we've seen over the course of the last 5 years in terms of how people are getting their news, right? A lot of people are either just like completely checked out of news, or they're getting it from non-traditional sources like YouTube shows, podcasts, etc. How are you advising candidates about how they should or should not engage with reaching voters through some of these mediums?
We advise them. We use and we advise a more is more strategy. Have some humility that you don't know exactly, the right proportion to put on each kind of social media platform or digital space. I mean, we're all kind of figuring this out. It is a very challenging thing. I joke with some of my mentors that ran governor's races in 1990. I was like, man, you had like 3 TV stations in each town, and you had the paper, and that's all you had to worry about. This is much more challenging. But we tell candidates, be out there and be yourself. Don't say crazy, unpopular things. Don't hold crazy, unpopular views, but be yourself, be natural, and be out on these as much as you can get this free on these social media platforms. Do that, but then also when you're thinking about your spend for paid media, an increasing percentage of that has got to be in digital, and digital covers, I think, as you know, like a wide variety of things at this point. But use every avenue you can to get in as many screens, because that's really what we're talking about. Everybody's either like looking at their phone or they're looking at the TV. And so how do you get on that? So I don't think anybody has like a silver bullet, but you just got to try a lot of things. Now, some of the traditional stuff, like there's still, particularly in a smaller electorate, there is a place for mail. In big electorates, TV is still the biggest. And some people they don't even want to talk about TV, but it is still by far the biggest chunk of your budget, because there's a lot of people that watch the evening news and that kind of thing.
College football.
Yeah, a lot of it. Go Dogs.
Well, that's a real sore subject for me. I'm a Texas Longhorns fan.
Oh,
and,
I'm so sorry,
the college
my friend.
rankings that came out. You know what? We're gonna leave that for another time. But brutal, man, brutal.
There was someone, because I can now make fun of my team. Well, make fun of yours. Oklahoma can't beat Texas. Texas can't beat Georgia, and Georgia can't beat Alabama.
Something like that. Something like that. And we all have a Florida problem. So, I appreciate you taking time to chat with us. I'm curious. We like to end the interviews on a positive, optimistic note when we can. What is giving you hope coming out of a year of I think tremendous learnings and preparation for as we look to next year?
Well, it's that we are not spectators at this play. We're the actors in the play. I think that's what these elections have shown. For as much as this wannabe despot, wants to reward himself and his friends and billionaires, and all these Republicans can't find their courage to stand up for it. Well, guess what? They don't control these elections, and that gives me hope, and I hope it gives Democrats and independents and Republicans that are fed up with their own side hope that they get to determine how their country is going to go. I think that a lot of people felt a certain amount of hopelessness. At least I heard a fair amount of it. When I campaigned for chair, there was a lot of angst. People were worried, but there was always that determination underlying that, and that determination reared its head in these elections and showed that the people of Georgia and the people across this country, they're not going to put up with this, and we get to have a say, and we continue doing that, and we're going to continue to take back power, and it is only with power that we can ever do anything for the people we say we care about.
Charlie Bailey, thanks so much for joining us on The 10. It was great to chat with you.
Thank you, Colin.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us this week. Please go back and check out previous episodes. We are officially in December, which means that the college football season is coming to a close for some and just gearing up for the next big fight for several teams. Here to break down the latest college football news, including, of course, the college football rankings out this week, is our senior producer, Kelly McCoy. Supervising producer,
Tomato.
Yeah, is our supervising producer, Kelly McCoy. Kelly, what do you think?
I gotta first talk about my Who's. These are the UVA Cavaliers, who have had a remarkable season this year. We just beat Virginia Tech, which you rarely can say. And I think the point differential in the win, like we haven't had a win like that since like 1991 or something wild.
Whoa.
So they are headed to the ACC championships, playing Duke. I am very, very hopeful that we will see UVA advance to the college playoffs for arguably like the first time ever, one of the first times. And it is rare that you'll find a UVA fan who can, you can string those words together in a sentence. So we are loving the prospects. It has been a real treat, Colin.
Has it, Kelly?
Go Who's.
I am not quite cheering because the UT Longhorns, who just beat number 7 Texas A&M, who was undefeated this past weekend, seems like are not getting a fair shake. They're number 13. According to the latest rankings, which I think is just ridiculous when not only have we beat Texas A&M, Oklahoma, who is slotted at number 8, but that we're not even breaking the top 10 is ridiculous. There are teams on there like BYU, University of Miami, Florida, who are ranked higher than Texas. That is crazy. Texas has such a harder schedule than these teams, being an SEC team. And you know what? As my dad, who I was texting with earlier today, put it, these rankings are, quote, a travesty, close quote. So shout out, Dad. I couldn't have put it any better myself. But like the entire system seems totally flawed when the entire point should be the best team should advance to the playoff. It shouldn't be here, all the, winners of the conferences, the top conferences all get a spot when the SEC is dominant in so much better than every other conference. And, it seems like it's just really structured to try to, force out some of these folks.
I feel, so I think college football has been taking positive steps in towards of like even creating the playoff structure in the first place.
I'll give you that.
Not defending the current structure. I think they should expand it further. Like, college basketball, March Madness, I love, one of my favorite times of year. And so, not that, the NCAA is necessarily listening to me, but I would encourage them to widen the pool. I don't understand why they haven't done this other than like the bowls and the moneyed interest. But, I think that this type of competition is what people are really looking for. So
I could not agree more. It is, it is supposed to all be about the competition and about, who is coming out on top and really represents, the best teams, not, have we given everybody their honorable mention slot in the playoff system? So, Folks, we're all about meritocracy here on the tent, and are watching the next month worth of football. Very aggravated. But we will see what happens. We will be tuning in regardless because, the holiday season is upon us. And for me, at least, you can't do the holiday season and not do college football. I also have to say, Dallas Cowboys, bringing it, baby. 3 wins in a row, beat the Eagles and the Chiefs, all within a 1 week span of time. We got some big games ahead, but Kelly, our chances of making the playoffs may be very, very, very small, but they do exist.
Listen, I'm here for, I feel like this NFL season, it's like up is down, right is left, the usual teams, the traditional, the Chiefs and Eagles and the like, right? It's like just this total mixed bag. And I don't know. I'm here for an underdog. I love an underdog story, Colin. So,
I generally am in agreement there, and the Cowboys, based on their record, certainly are the underdogs going into this playoff hunt. However, Kelly, I hate to admit this. Because I grew up loathing the New England Patriots because they were so dominant, but I gotta give it to them. They're kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I may be rooting for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is quite a confession, Colin.
For the AFC, of course.
Yeah. I'm here for the Patriots doing well without Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
It brings me so much joy, and the fact that his college coaching career is in the gutter.
Yeah.
Mwah, chef's kiss. So maybe I'll have to root for the Patriots myself too.
All righty. Well, you have heard it. You've heard our hot takes this week, folks. I hope you are enjoying some of the great sports that we are, being able to enjoy over this, holiday to New Year's stretch. It's always the most fun time of the year for me as a sports fan. So I hope you are enjoying it too. Please take care of yourselves, and we'll talk next week.
How that hike?
The 10 is a podcast from the Center for American Progress Action Fund. It's hosted by me, Colin Seeberger. Muggs Leone is our digital producer, Kelly McCoy is our supervising producer, and Mishka Espy is our booking producer. Hi Fan, Olivia Mowry, and Tony Pandolfo are our video team. Views expressed by guests at the 10 are their own, and interviews are not endorsements of a guest's perspectives. You can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.